Green.
In the green room.
Here we are. We are
drinks.
Live. Yeah, we're live on YouTube. Welcome everybody. It's a Texas Hemp Party.
How are y'all doing?
Awesome.
Hey everybody.
We'll dub some music in here for the playback. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know how it goes. But welcome everybody. I am your host, Leah Laxtons. I am a native Kentuckian living in Texas with a passion for hemp and its impact on local communities. We've got the fabulous Cynthia Morales with us. She's hidden behind the logo today. She's our producer. There we go. And of course, my co-host, Captain Cannabis, the science guy.
Hey guys, great to see y'all.
We've got an awesome returning guest with us this week. We got Lee Vernon from First Responders Fuel.
How are y'all doing? Good to be here.
And tuning in from Pennsylvania, super excited to have with us Eric Hurlock. How are you, Eric?
I'm good. How are y'all doing?
Excellent. So we're super stoked to have you today because I want to say it's probably been about 2 months ago, Eric. I, stumbled on your podcast. I frequently, have the Google alert for the word hemp tour. And I stumbled on what you were doing and was blown away by just like the very, NPR feeling. Like your voice definitely is very soothing because it's an audio podcast that you do. And the way that you were interacting with these farmers that you were meeting up there in Pennsylvania. So tell us a little bit about the podcast and what made you start it? What made you start this hemp journey?
Yeah, sure. So the podcast is called the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. I'm the digital editor at Lancaster Farming newspaper, which is a weekly ag newspaper up here in Pennsylvania. We cover the state and also sort of the region, the Northeast region. And in my capacity as digital editor, sometimes I'll go out and I'll cover farming events. And in 2017, I went to the Rodale Institute, which is, it's a fantastic place out in Berks County, Pennsylvania. They've been doing side-by-side organic conventional agriculture trials for the past 40 years. And they have different events in the summer to sort of showcase what they're doing. And in 2017, I went there for a field day and there I was next to 4 acres of hemp. It was before the Farm Bill was signed. It was one of the trial patches. I think there were 16 permits given in Pennsylvania that summer. And it just blew my mind, because sure, I read the Emperor Wears No Clothes book back, I found that in the 90s, I guess. And it was always in the back of my mind, like, oh, hemp's probably going to save the world at some point. But there I was just right next to it. And it was just so inspiring. And then from there, it was just always in the back of my mind, like, we have to support this industry. We have to there's no information out there about it, like how to grow it, where, all these different questions. So over the next sort of 8 months, just kind of working through my mind. And then that summer of 2018, I said to my editor, Steve Sieber at Lancaster Farming, let's do a podcast about industrial hemp. And he was like, wait, a what? About what? There's 2 new concepts really. And Lancaster Farming traditionally is sort of a conservative publication. We cover, sort of the rural farm life here in Pennsylvania. So industrial hemp at that point, still sort of fringe, a little progressive. But I got the green light to go for it. So I started interviewing people. My first interview was with Jeff Whaling. He was or he still is sort of like the leader of the National Hemp Association. And I sat down with him and he just gave me like a 3-hour interview and got the full download. It was amazing. And that was very inspiring. And then from there, I've just been interviewing people in the space, farmers. Sort of my mission is to bring information to farmers. And so I always keep them sort of in the forefront of everything I'm doing. But I talk to policymakers, I talk to inventors, I talk to pretty much, anybody who's doing something awesome in hemp. And so I just published my 106th episode yesterday.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, so it's about 2 years old now. And it's been an amazing journey. Just like the people I have met through this work, just tapped into like one large cannabis community, but also lots of small local communities that, it's just been a great journey that I've been on.
I think that's what's really interesting about the cannabis industry is it is still so regionalized, just because of the issues with interstate commerce and all of that, that now are cleared up with the Farm Bill. But we definitely find that when we travel to different shows, even that things can be so different from Kentucky to Colorado to here in Texas. And that's what makes it very fascinating. And of course, the farmers are dealing with that as well because the plant grows so differently from Colorado to Pennsylvania to Texas, for sure.
Yeah. And it's exciting to see like the birth of an industry. Like you never see this. Like, I'll never see it in my lifetime, just like an industry being born and watching it grow in real time. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, it certainly is. And as far as the crop there in Pennsylvania this year, so they have been growing now. Would this be like the second year or?
This is the second season of full production, like, not under the 2014 Farm Bill, but yeah, for the new rules. So
Very
our second
cool.
full year. Yeah.
So do you feel like the farmer's starting to get in the groove with it, getting the hang of it?
Yeah, for the most part. I think, you still have a lot of new people coming into it. Like this year, I was really surprised that, even more, hold on, let me back up. So 2020, there was sort of a glut of CBD, and I thought for sure there would be fewer permits granted this year, but no, there were like twice as many as the year before, and it's still growing. So yeah, there's still some bumps in the road, but I think, it's definitely taken a foothold here. The Amish growers that we have a lot of in Pennsylvania, they've taken to it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it sort of fits right into their method of growing, and also like the labor and the family workers. So that's been fun to see. I've been to hemp farms and, talking to Amish people who are picking up, flowers and looking at them. And it blows my mind, regularly to be covering this industry.
That's so exciting and awesome. Well, I think it's a great contribution that you've made. If you guys have not checked out this podcast, please be sure to go check it out. It's amazing for the entire hemp industry at lancasterfarming.com. And you can pull up those old episodes for sure. That's awesome. I see you had Morris Beagle on there recently. How cool.
Yeah, it was great to meet him. Yeah.
Yeah. So all the movers and shakers, Hempcrete. And again, I just think that you do a terrific job with, though it's a very calm and reassuring podcast, which I love for sure.
I like to think of it as the fresh air with Terry Gross of Hemp
That's
podcasts.
it.
That is exactly as
exactly
I
what we're thinking.
Yep. As we listened to it, we were in the car and we were just like, oh my God, yes, this is everything I love in life, like wrapped up in a podcast. So
well, thank you. That's good to hear.
For sure.
I have a good time making it. I do all the production and everything myself. And sort of the one special thing that I don't really ever talk about on the podcast is that I also do the music for it. So it's like a bunch of different skill sets intersecting in one spot for me. So I have a lot of fun and I'm very thankful to be doing it.
We see the musical instruments behind you too. That's cool.
Yeah, thanks. I'm in my little home studio in a converted barn. So yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. We had a very similar journey too when we got into hemp. We're entrepreneurs though. So you're a journalist, but we're entrepreneurs and got involved. But that first year, just educating ourselves. And then once you're educated, then you start realizing that most of the people in this business aren't. And you're like, no.
So new. Yeah. It's like, how can you be?
Hence the birth of Hemp Tours and then also the Hemp Business Builder.
Right.
Yeah, it's very cool. And let's bring you, Lee, bring you into this conversation a little bit. So you, of course, been on the show before. We always love having you. You're a terrific guest. But recently, I saw you on Facebook. You were talking about, of course, you were a first responder. So this is something very dear to your heart. And I know that you lost some friends recently, and we really send our condolences out to you. But that was your inspiration you were talking about for the nonprofit that you have, which we didn't get to talk about a whole lot last time you were on the show. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that nonprofit and really what your mission is there with it.
Yeah, we started the Brotherhood of Heroes Foundation roughly about 3 years ago. And what I found as a first responder is, when there's times of disaster or just need, the general public overall has a vast options of getting help. But when it comes to first responders, we don't. It's very limited. And I think some people take for granted, your city or employer take care of it. Well, I'm here to tell you, we're a government employee and we're not taken care of. So those options were slim. And so having gone through PTSD as a first responder, having lost friends to suicide or opioids or alcohol, and just seeing there's not a lot of options out there for us. We had our first shots back in, I believe it was 15, 16. There was a big flood in Louisiana, and that was one of our clients and people that we were doing work with in our medical company. And, in 10 days, we managed to get together about $250,000 worth of equipment, medical supplies, gear, and got it to them and distributed that out. And that was the catalyst of going, wow, you know what? I have a very vast network of people that want to help. They just didn't know where to turn to. And so that's how the Brotherhood of Heroes was essentially formed. Then being a nonprofit, you find out real quick, revenue to do good is the constant battle. And so instead of constantly asking for people to donate, which that gets tiresome and people just, are burned on that, I went, what can we do to help bring in revenue? And that led to the journey of the cannabis journey and finding CBD for first responders. We created First Responder Fuel with THC-free broad spectrum products that actually does good. We are making, and it's twofold, the product itself is allowing first responders and the general public to get healthy, mentally, physically. It is a game changer. At the same time, with every purchase of First Responder Fuel, there's a portion of every purchase that goes to the Brotherhood of Heroes Foundation. So now we have kind of a twofold of I can help first responders and when it comes to physical and mental health. And then with those purchases and sales, it goes back to helping those that are in need. And so with that, it's just it's a beautiful little marriage that works. And the goal is to help those that need it most when they need it. And we're all about no red tape. There's no time for that. I'm pretty simplistic, not up for the BS. Just when we get a call, go to work and get it done.
I love that. Well, that's an amazing mission. We're seeing that, really becoming a thing in entrepreneurship. I love the trend towards having a social mission wrapped in to the product that, compassionate capitalism, like we can use this capitalism to basically drive a higher purpose. So I love the mission of First Responder Fuel and what you're doing there. I think it's incredible. Now you also do some consulting on the farm side and on the extraction side. So what have you been seeing as far as in Texas? Are things going good for the farmers here that you've seen and in some other states?
Let's say, I guess with Texas, I think there were a lot of people that rushed into it, not having done their homework. And I think they're feeling the effects of that when you're dealing with, say, industrial hemp. Industrial hemp, we look at the what structures are in place from processing to the textiles to the, all of it that goes along with farming. It's so new. I think a lot of people rushed in and planted before those other things were in place. And it's kind of, they're playing catch up and it's kind of it's stinging a little. The one thing I noticed though is difference. Instead of in the industrial side, we tend to focus with our consulting group, focus on high grade, what I call craft cannabis hemp. So medical grade. And, some people go, well, it's all the same. Well, no, it isn't. To me, we look after strains and genetics that are going to bring a much higher ratio of CBD to, CBG, CBN, lower levels of that THC. Whereas your industrial hemp tends to be a little opposite. You're not getting as high a quality at times of that CBD and CBG and other good stuff. And sometimes your THC levels can be a little more elevated. So it has to be monitored. So I think those that have chosen to do smaller craft, higher quality medical grade hemp are seeing much better results and seeing much better returns than on the industrial side, simply because on the medical side, we have infrastructure and stuff in place when it comes to the processing and dealing with medicine or the medical side of things, whereas the textile playing catch up. And now I know companies that are doing some building and putting those foundations in place. So I think we'll see starting next year, those things come to fruition. But again, it's so new. Like Captain Cannabis said, it's a birth of an industry, and there's going to be a lot of growing pains. And I think the key is to why I love y'all, of working with y'all. We're about how do we educate anybody and everybody, whether you're a consumer, grower, extractor, if it has to do with hemp in Texas, how can we lead the way and show people how to do it right? Because if we fail at this, we may not get a second chance. And so it's up to us that honestly believe and know the benefits of what this plant can do to do it right. And it's going to take time. And I think, organizing with groups of people that are professionals like yourselves and us, we can help individuals minimize those losses. They don't have to learn nearly as many hard lessons the hard way as all of us have done figuring it out. We've kind of already gone down the path. So now it's a matter of sharing that information so others can be successful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And Eric, how about there in Pennsylvania? Are you seeing farmers growing primarily for the cannabinoids like CBD, or is there some fiber going on too?
There is a little bit of fiber, but at this point, yeah, it's mostly CBD, CBG. But they're sort of where I am in the southeastern part of the state. It's lots of small farms, produce farms. So CBD fit really well into that style of farming. But out western parts of the state, there's some bigger operations that are growing for grain and for fiber.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
did you guys
it really
open up?
is. I mean,
did you guys start back in 2014 under that first bill? Because Texas didn't. We didn't pass any laws until the 2018 bill. And so that's the reason why we're 4 years behind a lot of these other states. How about you guys?
We started in 2017. In 2017, there were, I think, 16 or 14 permits granted that year.
So you guys at least a year ahead of us.
Yeah,
more.
and then I think 2018, there was maybe 30, 35 permits. And then in 2019, I think we had almost 400. And then this year, 2025, almost 600. So it's growing.
Here in Texas, the first year anybody could get a license, they surpassed 1,000.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, by the time that all got passed, it's already summer.
Yeah.
When that infrastructure was, pretty much up and going. So they're already behind the curve. What do you see as the average, say, acreage that's being grown in your part of the world?
Oh, they're relatively small. That was the advice that sort of everybody was given, like start small, make sure you have a market, that sort of thing. And so you'll see average maybe 2-3 acres, some bigger.
Here in Texas, I think some people thought bigger is better. And we know of people that were doing 500 to 1,000 acres right out of the gate.
That's so dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
It did. So
yeah, you know how we are in Texas. We just think everything's got to be big,
bigger.
This was one case where the small, is really working out for the even. We've seen some really cool grows inside of retailer stores.
Oh wow!
Have the little grow box, like from an educational perspective, it's awesome.
Yeah.
People walking in, they really get to identify the plant with what's happening here on the other side. So, but like Lee said, we've had some very large acreage going down as well. So, and of course we wish everybody the best, but I think that was the advice we heard from Texas A&M and our ag department as well, was like, hey, figure it out this first year. Like, let's not, with the sort of crash in prices we'd already had, let's not crash this any further. So
just like that expression, fail fast, fail forward. And I twist it around. I say discover fast, discover forward, because in reality, we're not failing. We're just seeing what works, what doesn't work. And you're like, oh, that's a failure. I'm a failure. You're like, no.
Mistakes are how we learn.
You burn a lot of money. Yeah. So it's better to do a small sample when you're doing some scientific testing or educating of yourself. So that's what we've been preaching too, just like y'all the last few years, is, hey guys, no, I mean, don't, and a lot of people didn't even know about the heat would stress the plant. Stress causes more higher level in THCs, and trying to explain this to government officials, well, they don't know either. At least they came around to get us to this point, but we got a little bit of work to do. But I think we're doing it, guys. All of us here are doing it. People listening are doing it too, because they shared that information with their loved ones, family. We need to find someone that's like related to Mark Zuckerberg or something, and then because as soon as we get those guys on board,
we need some billionaires.
They realize that they're stifling the education process, because everyone's now learning on their platforms. Well, they're stifling that by not allowing us to advertise. They even cut us off. Education companies that are talking about hemp, legal product, they cut us off, and I'm like, guys, all we have to do, I don't believe in fighting. Miyagi, no believe in fighting. No. What we believe in is love and education. And because most people are good people, they just don't know any better. And if we start yelling at them, they're not going to listen to us. And so it's like, don't yell at a politician, educate them, give them a hug. Teaching the plant is teaching us peace and love, and then we'll see better results quicker. That's been our kind of especially I preach as Captain Cannabis, is now stop that, lay down the weapons, and let's help people. But if we can get if someone knows Mark Zuckerberg, or someone knows the CEO of Google, and then say, hey guys, you're the geniuses, come out with a plan that will help the farmers be able to park their products somewhere, because otherwise they could actually be hurting the America's economy once these farmers come out and they don't have any place to sell this to. And it's really the fault of Mark Zuckerberg and a few others in that realm, because they kind of took over our marketing mechanisms, which is fine. It's great platforms, but come on, guys. But they just don't know any better, I think. Or what's your thoughts on it?
It's pretty much robots, right? Controlling it. It's like, oh, that looks like a cannon. That looks like weed. Pull it down.
It's the algorithms who won't let us promote the hemp brands.
Damn that algorithm.
The other thing that, once we get a hold of the billionaires, we need them to put money into infrastructure, decortication facilities, because we got to get that fiber and grain industry just, up to scale. Like CBD is wonderful. I love CBD, but if we're going to save the world through farming, it's going to have to be through grain and fiber.
Yeah,
textiles
absolutely.
too, right?
What's with fiber into textiles, paper, bioplastics, all that stuff.
Yeah, it has some amazing uses. What is it? Over 25,000 uses of hemp, primarily in like 4 main industries that it can disrupt. But without the supply chain, we see the supply chain gaps just in CBD alone. And you're going into, like fabric, there's so many just facets and angles to it. So there's been some talk about a large fiber processor going in here in Texas, in Wichita Falls. And we hope that goes through and works out. I think they're working on finding some land. They had originally looked at Lubbock, and then some things fell through. So it's going to be interesting to see, once these facilities get open, then where they fit in the other part of the supply chain, because who's going to buy fabric from this new processor that's turning hemp into fabric? I think the demand is completely there on the consumer side, but filling these gaps, that's where I think is probably the best place to fit into the industry right now, if you're looking at a 10-year plan, but this certainly is a marathon and not a sprint.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a fun fact, guys. Fun fact. Let me just turn into a riddle. What famous kite flew in 17? Hang on a second. What year was that? 1752.
Franklin's kite.
And what was the string made of?
It's probably made out of hemp.
It was made out of hemp. Yeah, that's another one.
Nice.
I was looking over some electrical stuff the past few days, studying on some stuff on electricity, and it was kind of interesting because I was like, oh, I never knew that a string was made out of hemp. That's why it didn't break, guys.
Right. There you go.
There you go. Interesting.
The place where I live here in Pennsylvania is rich with that kind of colonial history. Ben Franklin actually just 4 miles up the road tested his Franklin stove at a house that's still up there. So it's neat.
Cool.
It's great to go to Philadelphia and do sort of like the Franklin tour. Like he's such an inspiration. And also like the hemp that was grown here. Like there's stories of George Washington going out to Lancaster County to buy, because the finest linens were grown in Lancaster County. And so there's like this rich history of hemp being grown right here in Pennsylvania.
Are the kids of the kids that live there now going to learn and bring back the machines or create, or import some machines to start making some stuff?
I certainly hope so.
Back, that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah. There's a town called Hempfield in western Lancaster County. And on our show, I actually interviewed the first hemp farmer in Hempfield Township, in 100 years. So that's pretty neat.
Wow.
That's so cool, isn't it? Wow. It's amazing. And the history this plant has here in the United States, but then also around the world is just incredible.
Just through history, it's been with us for, I don't know, tens of thousands of years, probably more.
Yeah.
You can either look at it like it's a gift from God put here for us, or it's evolved with us sort of in tandem. And, it's, I don't know, it's good.
Well, wait. Go ahead, honey.
Even the way that hemp traveled around the world, it was essentially human migration. It migrated with us. We carried it. We took it for a variety of reasons, food, fiber, spiritual activities, and
sales.
You have this hemp on the side of the road, all around the world, like the feral hemp, and all across the Midwest. And it's just absolutely incredible to see this plant just stay around despite everything being against it and being thrown against it. And here it is 100 years later, like you couldn't keep me down.
No.
Well, that's the irony that we always talk about too, is that as the paper companies are going out of business, the hemp plant comes back to life. So it's amazing because, it's pretty much the main reason why, prohibition happened was because of financial reasons of the lumber companies were trying to sell their product instead of try to beat the contract on the paper.
And DuPont, don't forget about DuPont. They had these synthetic fibers that were going to compete. Hemp was going to compete against that. So it's crazy.
It's a sad story, but if they had any idea that it was affecting our health, I think they may have thought twice about doing it. Because a lot of people just don't know. It's like, oh, well, it was just competition, no big deal. But who would have known that? I mean, this plant actually, we've been using it, and it helps our bodies, and but it's incredible though, isn't it?
Absolutely, especially on the medical side of things. I just finished an article for the Texas Hemp Reporter, and it focuses on cancer and the benefits of hemp. And the studies are there. You got to dig because they don't
tons of white papers,
but it's there. And really, most of the research and studying has been done in places like Europe, overseas. But you're starting to find more and more now that it's legal here in the United States. You're seeing more medical institutions start to do more studies and research on that, so they can get that needed backing and get the facts on that to hopefully help progress things and open other doors to, do good. But again, there's a big competitor that's standing in the way of all that, and they don't necessarily like all of this. And that's,
you mean big pharma?
Yep, exactly.
Because I get the sense that they're sort of poised to pounce on medical marijuana and take that industry over.
What I think is going to happen, and we've already seen it, and this is just a personal opinion. Look at what is legal as far as cannabis when it comes to epilepsy.
Right.
They legalized it, but most people don't realize that the cannabis they're using is synthetic. It's a synthetic cannabis. So you're not really giving the full spectrum and benefit that you can get from a natural organic plant. And that comes down to, let's look at big pharma. What is it? They want to pump that money. They want to, it's like pills. They can pump those pills 24/7. Well, you're not going to pump cannabis 24/7. There is a process that takes place, and it takes time. Time is money for them. They don't want to wait. And what I think they'll do is they will incorporate and go, yep, they'll be the final push when we see legalization. I believe that. When the right people and the right, I guess, the timing of it all. But I think what you'll see is from a pharmaceutical side is they will, they're going to grow, and then they're going to mix in synthetic materials with that product. So they can advertise it as, hey, it's cannabis, but you're really not getting what you think.
And that's where the craft cannabis industry is going to grow up regionally all over the place, because people are going to want their local organic cannabis for their medicines. Yeah.
So I do believe you're right. I think
the human rights issue
ready to pounce, but I don't think their intentions of giving people what we are about, which is the real natural whole plant. I don't think that's in their repertoire of.
But they're going to figure it out, because even if Coca-Cola and some of these really large companies are jumping into the game, there's enough money out there to stop them if that's what they're going to do. But I have a feeling the human race is waking up. Little by little, we're waking up. And so the plant's necessary. It's a human rights issue, even on the side of where people say, well, that it shouldn't be used for recreation. And it's like, well, why not? I mean, if beer is used for recreation, or whiskey for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, I think that distillation started like 400 AD before Christ, I think, or that's probably water anyways, but somewhere around there. But the point is like, it's a human right for me to choose. I shouldn't have to go to my daddy, the doctor, ask a doctor for a note for the person to sell something to me. I'm a human being on planet Earth. Right. If I want to catch a buzz by drinking chamomile tea and fall asleep, or if I want to, go buy melatonin, that I don't have to have a prescription. Why do you have to? Anyways, I just think that they should kind of stay out of the business, but eventually that's going to be fought in court. And a lot of these things have been, not similar things have been fought in court. And eventually people say, that is a human right. If I want to get a buzz off of, say, the THC part of the plant, and allow my creative powers to start functioning at a higher level, well, what's wrong with that buzz? That's actually therapeutic, helpful, it's beneficial. So, so what there's a buzz, there's other people on buzzes too, right?
And I'll tell you, as a medic, 28 years of running the streets, I've never once ran a call on somebody for just cannabis.
Are you serious?
No.
That's great. Yeah.
Synthetic, you start talking synthetic, absolutely. All day long, I would not recommend synthetic cannabis to anybody, but it's bad, it's poison, no good. But regular cannabis, not one time. I know they're starting to see people with the cannabis now and genetics and genes and stuff of how they're getting such high potent plants that you are seeing people take some of that, and it's a little too much, so you're having a bad trip. But as far as a negative physical effect, not one time, because of how cannabis works on the body. It's not like an opioid or heroin, where that affects the actual central nervous system, shuts it down, and you die when you take too much. Cannabis doesn't work that way. And so I can, as a professional medical responder, I've never ran anything on somebody that's cannabis related. You're starting to see a few out there, but I think, again, those are people that don't know what they're taking, or taking too much, or, some people just can't handle that. But from a true medical emergency, I haven't seen it, but that's just me, and I'm only one of many
Oh no, we've heard the same from others, but it's like it's really great to hear your personal experience of that. But yeah, I mean, everyone says that never been a person that died from it. You can even go to Amsterdam and eat a large brownie on accident. Not to say that someone did that, but but it doesn't kill you. You just go to sleep and you wake up the next day and your brain's functioning better. So not a bad thing. Just but it's irresponsible, the person selling that brownie. And that's where a lot of this knowledge of the failing, fast failing forward, or should we say discovery. So we should have these guys. We want to encourage everyone in the manufacturing to be responsible, because we know what the plants can do. We need to be able to measure these things out, weigh them out, so people get accurate numbers. And when they're playing around with the plant, they can figure out what their tolerance is and what their needs are. But it takes time to
And I
discover
think it's interesting. You look at CBD. What I'm seeing as a trend in CBD, and it followed the same where marijuana is recreationally legal, is this: hey, more is better. But I'm starting to see these products out there in the CBD world that are now claiming 5,000 milligrams a bottle to 10,000. And I'm like, you don't need that. The average person doesn't need this extraordinary amount of CBD. Most people don't understand when it comes to CBD, really small amounts will do a lot of good. Taking too much, you can actually counter the effect of doing good and not behoove yourself. Not that it's going to hurt you, but you're wasting money and you're not getting what you need out of it. So I think it's interesting too, of educating the public on more does not equate to better. I believe you treat, I guess we can't say treat, you all the rules and the nonsense and the
insert all the disclaimers here.
Yes. I like to guide individuals on your body will determine the amount that it needs. And it's going to vary from every single person. And so your body will determine what you need. But in most cases, these astronomical amounts being thrown out there, it's not needed unless you're dealing with something severe like cancer or a chronic disease of some sort. Then yeah, you're going to need more. But for the average person, it's not needed. And so I think that's an important thing to get across to people too.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see that trend in THC going back down, like in edibles now. You see a lot of microdosing, 2 milligrams, 4 milligrams. And in CBD, we're sort of at this other side where it's way high, but I think that will also come back down as people start to understand more about the way that it interacts and the milligrams that are really necessary here. So I guess New York passed this week. Their rules for hemp came out, CBD. Yeah. That was kind of interesting. And that's up near you, Eric. I guess it made a big splash because it's kind of some out of the ordinary things, like they are banning smokable flower.
Yeah.
I guess if it's in a cigarette form, but not in a flower form. So that's kind of like what was they're trying to happen here in Texas, which we have going to a future lawsuit right now in February, or like a future court date. But there were some limits around the milligrams that can go into different products. I guess some limits around edibles on what it can be in, what it can't be in, and drinks and things like that. So I think a lot of people are looking at this because they think it's going to guide other states, because it's one of the most intense rules that have been passed to date. So we're kind of keeping an eye on that to see
something interesting in there is that the rules for, hemp that's in progress, from farmer to consumer, they're giving it like a 3% threshold, not 0.3.
Oh, wow.
That makes a lot more sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's at the retail level, consumer level, it still has to be 0.3, but they're given a great big sort of wide berth for processors, which totally flouts the federal rules, right? Or they're still working that out. It's like,
I don't understand.
Wondering how that'll
3% or 0.03, 0.5%. I think that's ridiculous. If I want to grow a plant,
that was an arbitrary number that somebody came up with, no facts or scientific data to back up that number. It was just, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's so crazy because because when you think about it, I mean, yeah, if I'm going to be a farmer or a processor, I want the highest potency of whatever cannabinoid I'm going after for the products I'm going to be making as a processor. So you ask the farmer, hey, can you grow a plant? And who cares if it has THC? I can just run it through my one pass and then send the THC, distillate to California or wherever. But I mean, I want to maximize the highest potency of whatever plant. So why would you ever put a restriction on the farmer or the processor? Just put the restrictions on the packaging. That just like you're saying there too, is dosing, how much you're going to put in a dose. Well, that makes sense for New York to say that. That makes a lot of sense. But why are you trying to restrict? And there's no way you're going to control that plant when once it goes through a few generations of that plant, that just like humans, we change. Our children don't look exactly like our grandparents,
Thankfully.
Yeah. But we get smarter, we get better, we adapt, and who knows?
It's like the farmer should not be penalized for doing what a farmer does. The plant is going to produce THC anyway, and you want the farmer to be a good farmer and grow good crops. And just to criminalize that or even threaten, like economic damage to a farmer, oh my goodness, my crop was at 0.45 and he has to, or she has to burn that crop now. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Immature. It's the immaturity or the word for slow down, you know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah, definitely. For sure. And that's the thing is we've been mentioning, all of this can be totally fixed in the extraction manufacturing process. It's not like these products are going to get out to the public and, wreak havoc. Like there's already this infrastructure set to stop that from happening because the processor wants high CBD. They want to comply with the laws. So why is it even on the farmer whatsoever? He should just take it in. And then the processor works it out on the backside. So that'll be really interesting.
Irrelevancy. That's what we want to shoot for at the farmer level.
That's it. It'll be interesting to see what USDA's response will be to that. Because I know that they went back and forth with, I think it was North Carolina tried to do earlier last year, like a larger threshold, and it was scornfully addressed. So hopefully maybe the USDA is a little more open-minded now that they've had a year to really analyze the grows across the country. Who knows, because I just don't see, at least with our ag department, most ag departments are pro-farmer too. They think a ridiculous, restriction on the farmer. So,
our ag department submitted comments to USDA rule, and they would want like a 1% THC threshold, which that seems totally reasonable.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
And what's the deal with the smokable? I mean, why are people trying to say, well, you can't smoke that plant. You're a bad person if you do. I mean, what's the point? I don't get it.
I think maybe the whole tobacco industry and like the, how do I say this?
Politics?
Well, politics, but also like
Where's the motive?
Like, remember, smoking is bad. Like, we learned that from the tobacco industry. Smoking.
Religion, and then the tobacco industry.
But anyway, so now like there's something like in the zeitgeist that like smoking anything is bad, but humans have been smoking herbs for hundreds of thousands of years. But it's just when they started smoking tobacco and 20 cigarettes a pack and people are dying from lung cancer. There's just this, educationally, yes, smoking those things are very bad for you and will kill you. But now, I don't know, they sort of move that over to other herbs that get smoked.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think part of that is ignorance on the people that are in charge of making policies and rules. There's a lot of that. What's interesting when you start digging into cancer, a tobacco versus cannabis, they cannot find any correlation with increased cancer risk and cannabis, which you definitely absolutely can with tobacco. So to me, if there's one thing you were to smoke that has a lesser, I guess, probability of contracting a lung cancer, it's definitely with cannabis, because tobacco, with your chemicals and everything that's involved in that, that's a whole different game.
Absolutely.
And I believe that
Yeah.
you also have that addictive part of tobacco, which is nicotine, whereas cannabis doesn't have an addictive chemical in there. People think it is, but honestly, cannabis is not addictive.
Whatsoever.
So looking at the science, it's hard. I get where you're coming from, and I agree. There shouldn't be a stigma or stipulation on cannabis. If anything, it has tremendous benefits when it comes to the medical side of things.
Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is tobacco gave smoking a bad name. That's it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where it comes from. It's just like a stigma across everything. Don't smoke anything.
Well, and
What
the
about that
vape,
white paper, honey, too, that you
look what happened to the vape industry
Yeah.
here, 2 years ago when they had, they were putting
Vitamin
vitamin E and then you had the lung issues and people got sick. Well, that wasn't due to the cannabis. That was due to putting in a chemical that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and you look at 10 years of vape history before that, no issues. And yet vaping has sort of gotten wrapped up with smoking. Like these two things are both wrong, so kind of interesting. Smoking anything's wrong, vaping anything. So yeah, I think it just kind of gets tied up together. But there's a couple of white papers on cannabis use with the lungs out there that, pretty clearly outline that not only is it not harmful, but it's actually helpful for certain issues. So always interesting times as we unravel more and more of the cannabis plant and its journey here with us as humans. So I want to talk about a couple of events that are going down, and then we're going to get you guys to give a shout out to where people can find you on social media. So this month is the Texas Normal Membership Drive. Normally they have a really cool Halloween event. This year with everything going on,
How much is that?
So $35 for the year. You can join and support Texas Normal, get this really cool tumbler.
How do they
And
make any money that's so cheap?
it is, I know, right? They're awesome. They're a great organization. We love to support them. And in lieu of their regular Halloween party, we actually went together to do this really cool event tonight called the Halloween Hemp Harvest Hop-In Party. So this is all virtual. It's on a really neat platform called Hop-In that is very interactive. So you can go in different rooms. You can talk to different people. You can do speed networking where it just randomly connects you with a random person for 2 minutes and then you spin on through. We're going to have a DJ, actually 2 different DJs on the main stage all night long. We're going to have tons of giveaways. We're giving away Texas Normal memberships. We're giving away, the other thing I want to talk to you guys about is, so we're giving away these really cool VR headsets because you can go to our website and we actually have 2 VR tours up right now. One of Greenleaf Farms. This is just south of San Antonio. Basically, when you're looking at it here, it's 360 view. And then if you click this little box, it goes to this cool thing called Google Poly Tour Creator. And inside of that, if you put your phone inside this cool little VR headset and you click, there's a little VR button up here. I guess it probably doesn't give it to me here in because I'm not on the phone, but you can basically go here, you click it, and it's going to give you a super up close, in-depth look at this farm, which is super cool. And we've got a second farm. If you go down on the website about halfway, this is Tejas Hemp, which is just outside of Austin in Dripping Springs, Texas. And the cool thing about this one was we learned how to actually add in little clickable cool things in this one. So
You can walk around.
yeah,
Oh,
so
wow.
you can walk all the way down.
Leah, there's the plant. There's one of them that you planted.
You can click and it'll be this is the cola. So we've found a way to incorporate even more education. It's super cool. You can
Nice.
walk down this entire row of hemp here at Tejas Hemp in a series of 8 scenes. So lots of fun stuff, guys. We're finding a way to keep on educating, even with not being able to do our in-person tours at the minute. Or at this moment, you can totally join us in VR. So we're looking forward to filming some more cool stuff in VR, some stores, more farms. all that good stuff. And on that note, Tejas Hemp is actually having their second harvest this weekend. If you want to be a part of that, you can email tejashemp2020@gmail.com. Put harvest in the subject line. If you want to volunteer, go find out what it's all about. They'll send you all the details on where to go, what to do. And so that's a great opportunity to get like hands-on with Texas hemp. It's a really unique hemp strain that they have as well.
Are we going this weekend?
I think we're gonna try to go on Saturday. I haven't actually worked out those details yet, but
so if anyone wants to see hemp tours, they can also.
Now that we said it on the live, I guess.
Well, the truth is, we planted some of those plants. So we volunteered during the planting of them, and I really am excited about going and harvesting our plants that we planted. We blessed them to you, little cute guy. You're gonna do fine. You grow up to save lives, But
it was really a great experience for sure. Tejas Hemp is doing some awesome stuff.
They had bands. They had a psychedelic band out there playing. It was amazing, and the food. Oh, it was so good. They do amazing.
Aaron told me that all the time people stop by because they're right on a major road there in Dripping Springs. People stop by like, can I just take a picture with this field? They can't believe it, So it's great to see Texas hemp getting into the ground and now coming back out of the ground. So super exciting. I know it's harvest time for you guys up there in Pennsylvania too.
Yeah, just coming to the end of it. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. So around the country, what an awesome time of year to see all the hemp coming out and going into amazing products. So let's go through where everyone can find you. Now, you guys, let's see. So for Eric, again, go to lancasterfarming.com. Are you on social media as well, Eric?
Yeah. I have an Instagram account for the podcast, LF Podcast Hemp.
Oh, cool.
But you can also find our podcast on all the normal platforms, Spotify, Apple, everything like that. Just do a search for Industrial Hemp and you'll find us.
Very, very cool. So yeah, make sure that you go and follow that. There it is. Awesome.
Yeah, there's my dog.
Oh, what's your dog's name?
His name is Willie.
Willie.
Click that video. Let's watch that.
He is so
like
fluffy.
It is like Willie Nelson. Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
My daughter named him after Willie Nelson.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
He's just a fluffy little bundle of joy.
He's a Muppet for sure.
This is so cool. So if you want to follow that journey, be sure to subscribe to the Lancaster Farming Podcast. And for Lee, of course, you can go to brotherhoodofheroes.org. Find them at First Responder Fuel and First Responder Fuel on Instagram. You're also very active on Facebook, right, Lee? What is the best place to reach you?
Any of those, we check all of them. Instagram and Facebook are our primary social media outlets. So don't use Twitter too much.
Yeah, that's kind of the last one. Usually when we're trying to talk to reporters or something like that, it's big on, you guys are big on Twitter, right, Eric? That's like y'all's little domain over there.
Everybody but me. I stay away from Twitter. I don't know. It's sort of.
I used it for a while and I got Twitter.
Yeah, I'm over it.
It's just a lot going on. It's just like a water hose or fire hydrant going off all the time. So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today. It's been a fabulous conversation as always. We enjoyed having you and we wish you all the best for a happy harvest season. Happy Hemp Harvest Halloween coming up this weekend, and can't wait to catch up with you soon. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Please be sure to go down and click the subscribe button so you'll get that notice every time we go live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Time for the Texas Hemp Party.
Awesome.
And I think that's it, guys. Had a blast.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Always a
Nice seeing you again.
All right.
And yay!